Well, we're doing a little bit of shaking here, mostly just getting into the studio, right, Mr. Jeff? Yes, I know. Saw an article that with all this snow and ice that we have on our roads, making it difficult for the melting agents to work, and that's why our roads are but at least the potholes get filled up with snow and ice. So there's an upside to that. Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Crandell. You're listening to another edition of This Week with Tom Crandell with Mr. Jeff, TV producer extraordinaire in the studio tonight, which means on Comcast, channel 16.
Tuesday night, 9 o'clock.
Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. You can catch the show on Access Vision here in town. You can also listen live. You can also at WBCK 95.3 FM. You can listen on, oh my goodness, the whole station's on iHeart, so you can listen there. And so if you're bored, you want to tune in, we'd love to have you on the show. As always, phone lines are open, 269-488-9595 for Kalamazoo. Points West, that's a free call, 488-9595 locally. Number's 441-9595. And yes, it is true, you're always welcome to join your humble microphone operator. And I was sure Mr. Jeff was going to make it in tonight, but then I realized he has this new micro equipment. He doesn't need to do all that setup. I was thinking I could almost just do the show in my underwear, but I can't do that. He'd leave if I did that. All right, tonight, we have some really cool things in military history. I found some really good ones tonight, and also there's a national politics, Michigan politics. Saw an article on Mark Schauer in the Battle Creek Inquirer. For those of you maybe who are listening up north in Cadillac or in Louisiana, we have visitors or listeners down there. Mark Schauer is going to be the Democratic challenger, or the Democrat challenger to our sitting Republican governor, Rick Snyder. So, Mark Schauer's in the newspaper. Oh, we have a Sheriff Joe Arpaio update, which is pretty interesting. We have an Econ 101. If you want to know how to make capital, which is money, flee. This is a good one. Also, a while back, I had been invited to substitute and co-host with Tim here when Rank was gone. And Tim and I had a long conversation about the Farm Bill. They were debating the Farm Bill. This is, of course, a long time ago because they can't seem to pass anything. And that made a headline, not a little headline today. So if you don't remember it, we're going to refresh your memory. Ooh, and we have an Econ 401 coming up, too. A little lesson to be learned from England. We have some comments from our new Homeland Security Chief. And I have a thing on earthquakes, and it all relates to prepping. So, yes, we have a prepping segment if there's enough time to get to it. First out of the gate, and boy, if you heard that, we should be actually turning that down a little bit. And, first out of the gate, though, the American Association of University Women, the AAUW, are having, and I promise, these are nice ladies, and I see them, every week or two. They are having a winter used book bag sale. You select the book, Saturday, February 8th, 2014, 10 to 5, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free, no money admission. They charge $5 per bag, and they actually provide the bags. And it is being held at the Brinks Self-Storage Suites, 110 Knapp Drive. That's Knapp Drive, Battle Creek. It's next to the Lone Star Restaurant. And the proceeds benefit local community projects. So you go, girls. Okay. This day in military history. Let's see what time we have. Okay, we got time. January 26, 2014, 1784, in a letter to his daughter, Benjamin Franklin expressed unhappiness over the eagle as the symbol of America. Mr. Jeff, what did he want? Do you remember?
Turkey.
You are correct, sir. He wanted the turkey. I think after 200 and some odd years, he got exactly what he wanted. And this is really a milestone. January 26th, 1837, Michigan became the 26th state of the United States. By the early 30s, Michigan had enough residents to apply for statehood. However, approval of the measure languished for several years due to a boundary dispute called the Toledo War. with both sides claiming a strip of land around Toledo. Ultimately, Congress awarded the Toledo Strip to Ohio. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And as compensation, we got the entire Upper Peninsula. So the Cheeseheads now became Lions fans. Well, maybe in Penn only. January 26, 1861, Louisiana becomes the sixth state to secede from the Union when a state convention votes 113 to 17 in favor of the measure. Now, what's really unique about this is a state legislature bowed up to the federal government. Forget the topic. I think I commented that a couple weeks ago. Good friends of mine from Louisiana are really just, their comments were, if those people in the South had just picked their own damn cotton, they wouldn't have had the problem that we had. We could have gone on to fight a states' rights issue, but not on that one. Not on the issue of slavery. But Louisiana, the state legislature got together, bowed up, and stood up, and pushed back. So there's some hope yet. And okay, and on that same vein, January 26th, 1871, a United States income tax was repealed. Hallelujah. If we could just replace that with 2014, but fat chance of that happening. Isn't it? Because some of the articles tonight, if I get to them, if we have time, we will. We need those tax dollars to pay for this one fella on disability. We'll talk about him. And January 26, 1880, Douglas MacArthur, the son of a high-ranking military figure, Arthur MacArthur. I wonder if his parents didn't like him or something. Was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, what's interesting about Doug MacArthur, he was originally, growing up, he was a very poor scholar. In 1903, MacArthur graduated first in his 93-man class at West Point. And quite frankly, he was a badass warrior. Excuse the French, but he was one serious kind of warrior. These were some of the things we learned about good old Doug MacArthur. In the First World War, MacArthur commanded the 42nd Division on the Western Front. Divisions typically 10,000 men, plus or minus. He was decorated 13 times, cited 7 additional times for bravery. Promoted to the rank of brigadier, I don't know if that's brigadier general or not. In August 1918, 3 months later, he became the youngest divisional commander in France. Later, this is in the 20s, Douglas MacArthur developed right-wing political views and at one meeting argued that, quote, pacifism and its bedfellow, communism, are all about us. Day by day, this cancer eats deeper into the body politic. How was he so right about that? In June 1932, Douglas MacArthur controversially, that's it, sorry about that, used tanks, 4 troops of cavalry with drawn sabers, and infantry, sounds like he's going to war against enemies of the state, right? With fixed bayonets, meaning anticipating hand-to-hand combat, but he used it on the bonus army in Washington, D.C. Now, I didn't get a chance to look into bonus army. We will, though. But basically, he attacked American citizens. He justified his attack on former members of the U.S. Army by claiming that the country was on the verge of a communist revolution. Turns out, 2 other very high-profile military, one eventually made it into politics, also took part in the operation, and their names were Dwight D. Eisenhower and General George Patton. So, he was not alone. He had quite a storied life, that man. Of course, he crossed blades with Harry Truman, lost his job. But that's another battle. All right, January 26, 1893. When I first read this, I thought, I know this guy. And I couldn't quite place him at first. Captain Abner Doubleday was born in Ballston Spa, New York. And he had served in the Seminole Wars and fought in the Seminole Wars in Florida. He'd fought in the Mexican War. He was promoted to captain in 1853. And his position, his appointment that brought him the most fame, he was stationed in Charleston Harbor when Fort Sumter was attacked. I knew that name, Abner Doubleday. January 26, 1943, the first OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, the first OSS agents parachuted behind Japanese lines in Burma. Now, for those of you who are Vietnam veterans, can you imagine what it was like parachuting, what it would have been like parachuting into the jungles of Vietnam? And even with all the help we could give you, as difficult as that would be, these guys were doing it in 1943 in Burma. Now, perhaps they were jumping into open fields, but I don't know. Burma either has mountains, snakes, they have awful snakes, and they also have a lot of trees. Anyway, OSS, that's really the precursor to our CIA, and ultimately probably the Special Forces. And here, January 26, 1945. Who has never seen the movie? Hey, I got a visitor in the studio, Mr. Rank. Hey, Rank. Show of hands. Have you seen the movie Hell and Back? That'd be number 2. Hell and Back.
I don't know if I saw that movie. No.
Let's see. Hell and Back would be, I think I might have you now, Rank.
Do you hear me now?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe come over and fix it. American Lieutenant Audie Murphy. Now, he was a pint-sized guy. Audie Murphy was a pint-sized fella. And as a kid, I remember him as in the movie, To Hell and Back. He also starred in other movies. Real soft-spoken, soft voice. Did you see the movie, Rank?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay, you got to rent it. This is a real-life story. This is really an amazing story.
Aren't we living to Hell and Back right now?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm actually a little flustered right now having a professional in the studio because you do know I'm only the janitor here.
Well,
and I steal the microphone once in a while. But
I came in to check on my protege.
Yeah, right. Okay. He on January 26, 1945, American Lieutenant Audie Murphy is wounded in France. Born the son of Texas sharecroppers. Income inequality, opportunity. Did he have opportunity? I think he did. He was born the son of Texas sharecroppers. Sharecroppers meaning you don't own the land, you work for the landowner. He was born June 29th.
He didn't build it either.
He did not build it. No, and the other thing, too, he probably never said this.
Navy corpsman.
No.
Navy corpsman.
Probably said never said Navy corpsman. I think he got that one right.
Or the Miami Heats.
With the Miami Heats. He served 3 years of active duty, beginning as a private, rising to the rank of staff sergeant, and finally winning a battlefield commission as second lieutenant. He was wounded 3 times, fought in 9 major campaigns across Europe, and was credited with killing 241 Germans. He won 37 medals and decorations, including the Distinguished Service Cross, a Silver Star with an oak leaf cluster, the Legion of Merit, and the Croix de Guerre. It's a palm. It apparently must be a French award. The battle that won Murphy the Medal of Honor, and which ended his active duty, occurred during the last stages of the Allied victory over the Germans in France. Murphy acted as cover for infantrymen during a last desperate German tank attack. Climbing atop an abandoned U.S. tank destroyer, he took control of its 50 caliber machine gun and killed 50 Germans. Some were as close as 10 yards. They were trying to flank him from the right. He stopped the advance. He suffered a leg wound, but he continued to fight. And actually, that tank destroyer here was on fire. And the guys behind, and he was out. He had ordered a retreat. This guy's back to a prepared position in the trees. He stayed out front, hopped on this tank. I mean, this guy was a warrior. You gotta hand it to him.
241 Germans he killed?
He was credited with killing 241 Germans. But it's interesting, upon returning to the States...
How did they count? Sorry to interrupt you, but how would they even know?
Well, they do a lot of after-action reports in these battles.
Because I have a good friend, Tom, if I may, and I've said
they count
this
hands.
Here.
If you find 2 hands, that's 2 enemy killed.
Yeah, a good friend who fought in Vietnam, an older guy I used to work with, and he told me, if anybody tells you how many BC they killed, they probably never saw a day of action, in that regard.
You're exactly right about that, and that's been a bone of contention through that whole war. I think we probably stand to have a little more credible information coming from this, because that was a territorial war. Your enemies were
as opposed to a jungle war.
Yeah, as opposed to a jungle insurgency war. So now you were out on a football field, and your enemy were there. They were on the 20-yard line. You were on the other 20, and you killed each other, and whoever was left on the field got counted. But don't forget, in that war, too, when there were bodies of Germans lying across the battlefield, we went through every one of them looking for maps and intel, and whether it was 241 or 231 or 271.
He killed a lot.
He killed a lot of them. But more importantly, he saved probably thousands of American lives, or tens of hundreds. He certainly saved more than 241 American lives by doing what he did. And then, of course, he got into Hollywood. Well, it was Jimmy Cagney. Upon returning to the States, Murphy was invited to Hollywood by Jimmy Cagney, who saw the war hero's picture on the cover of Life magazine. Now, in 1950, Murphy won an acting contract with Universal Pictures. His most famous role, he played himself in the successful movie To Hell and Back. But what's really brings kind of this whole thing around, as interesting as his film career was, his public admission that he suffered severe depression from post-traumatic stress syndrome, but back then we called it battle fatigue. So here was a real-life American hero who made the ultimate sacrifice, really, of his mental health, and it led to addictions. He was eventually killed in an airplane crash, but he is a wonderful role model for all our veterans. We salute you and take our hats off to you. And 1970, January 26, 1970.
And if I may,
yes,
may I? 269-441-9595. If you have a thought about this, give us a call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or not even a thought. What about just giving thanks to the veterans, or speaking about a veteran you knew who and what they did out there? I'm sure Tom and the listeners would love to hear from you.
Well, it's a lot like that USAA commercial, the little kids are in their right to buy the insurance because their parent or loved one served. I know a lot of yours did, too. And this is hats off in January 26, 1970. United States Navy Lieutenant Everett Alvarez, Jr. spends his 2,000th day in captivity in Southeast Asia. He was first taken prisoner when his plane was shot down on August 15, 1964. He became the longest-held POW in U.S. history. As my star guest today is Ranks in the studio, said 441-9595. If you'd like to join us, lines are open. We'd love to have you join the show. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
This close.
Tuturek modest.
This close to making history.
Ofon 120.
We are this close.
We are this
We're
close.
this close.
This close to changing the world. We are this close to making sure no child suffers a crippling disease
ever again.
We are this close to making history.
We are this close to ending polio.
Because we are this close to ending polio.
We are this close to ending polio.
We are
This close to changing the world.
This close.
All we need is you.
Is you.
It's you.
Is you.
We are this close. This close.
Be a part of history at rotary.org/endpolio.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Crandell, and yes, we're right back at it this week with Tom Crandell, and you're listening to WBCK News Talk Radio 95.3. And just to remind you once again that you are welcome to join the show, 441-9595. If you are in parts west, you're welcome to call us at 269-488-9595. And recently, I put a note out on our Facebook page. There's a tired old phrase out there. Email me your comments. Email me your comments. Email your comments to. And I wanted to put a little different twist on this, so perhaps, many of you may not see it on Facebook, so I'll put it out here. With the proliferation of smartphones, even I was able to master my voice recorder on my phone. And you don't even have to be smart enough to figure out how to share it with someone via texting or emailing or what have you. But you're welcome to do a voice recording. And it'll all be anonymous. We don't have to give your name. But I think it'd be a neat twist on email your comments to, and then I would just read it on the air. So keep that in mind. And you're welcome to submit your audio recordings. We have a caller. Well, we had a caller on line one. Perhaps they'll come back. I had mentioned before the show started that our homeboy, Mark Schauer, who's running for governor, made the front page of our local newspaper, the Battle Creek Inquirer, today. Headline is, Schauer looks for a running mate. And underneath that's, Battle Creek Democrat needs balance on the ticket. Now, Mark, I know your heart's in the right place. And, we do need public servants. But when I saw that, honestly, Mark, my first, I think we teach our kids that they can think whatever they want to think, but that doesn't mean you get to say whatever you want to think. Mark, I'm not sure how you can balance your ticket out. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not sure how you can really balance it out. I mean, you were in the Congress that voted for Obamacare, and then you got voted out. And I don't think you would stand up for me. I lost my health insurance policy. And I'm one of the other 6 million that did. And we need help, and it's not tired old ideas, class warfare stuff. And I think it's, I think you're a wonderful guy. I've met you. I've been in your office up in Lansing, and no, we couldn't get the MEDC to backtrack from their intransigence. Hopefully some Democrats up in Lansing will make some inroads on that group. I give kudos to them to stand up to this lawless group. But in the article by Kathleen Gray and Paul Egan, whom I do not know, although Paul Egan, could he have a brother named Dan Egan? I'll bet he does. There are many things for the Democrat gubernatorial candidate to consider, like geography, gender, and race. How about competence? A candidate also needs to be able to raise a significant amount of money. Yeah, that's pretty important representing the middle class. And, quote, be willing to attack the Republican candidate. Now, there you go. Don't stand for something. Knock the other guy down. It's worked very well for the last 100 years, I'll admit. And if a candidate, any candidate, Mark, not just you, if any candidate's good at it, they'll win. I mean, look at the guy who won in 2008 and 2012. All he did was tear down his opponent after the Republican primary system did a darn good job of tearing it down for him. But later on in this article, quote, let's see, who was this that said this is, Ed Sarpolis, a Lansing political consultant with Target Insight. We need more political consultants. We don't have enough of those. And we really need them to tell us what to think. All right, I'm late on a break. We're going to go to a break because I want to get more into this because I think it's relevant. And stay tuned because Jeff and I are going to stay right here, and hopefully we'll get you back.
Have you heard? scam artists are trying to trick seniors into giving them their Medicare number.
I heard that. This happened to my friend. A man came to her door wanting to sign her up for the new Medicare program. Well, when she got her Medicare summary notice, it was full of charges for services she hadn't received. So I did something about it. I joined the Senior Medicare Patrol, where I teach others to protect their Medicare numbers, review statements to spot false charges, and report suspected fraud.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Crandell. You're listening to This Week with Tom Crandell, and I have Rank back in the studio. See, I'm the janitor. He shovels driveways or sidewalks around here, and, as well as a great show Monday through Friday here at 9 to noon. And that little amazing bagpipes. Mr. Jeff posted on the Facebook page recently that one of our shows were banned in Ireland and Scotland. And I thought, how the heck did that happen? I mean, very few people in town know who I am, let alone anybody in Ireland or Scotland. Well, we can thank YouTube for that. Turns out they resent me playing The Amazing Grace in the bagpipe version because of copyright laws. So YouTube has this incredible crawler, a little bot thingy, and it looks for music that is copyrighted, what have you, and then whatever segment it appears in, it bans, and it will not allow it being played. So to any potential listeners in Ireland and Scotland, I'm sorry. I'd like to find out what music would get banned in Iran or Pakistan or Afghanistan. Those I'd wear with a red badge of courage. I wouldn't mind getting banned in those. Okay.
You're just such a horrible person.
I'm the horrible person, right?
Well, I mean, if you're getting banned, I don't even get banned anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you what, you play that, you'll get banned. And then we got to find out the music that gets banned in Iran, because then I'd be proud of that. But
I'm thinking Fat Bottom Girls by Queens.
Yeah. Well, somehow we could trash their new vacation plan thing that Iran is touting to come to our beaches. Dress up head to toe, cover 100% of your skin, and come to our beaches.
You can get your hands tanned.
Yeah, you get your hands and your toes, but only if
I don't think
they
can show toes.
No, they can't show
Females
toes.
can.
Yeah, no. They can maybe show no, they can't even show their nose. But then there's nose hair and all that stuff. I don't want to go there.
441-9595. Come on, light up these.
Give us a call.
Lights. Give us a call. If you're just sitting there listening, 441-9595. What are your thoughts about this ban? Or if you want to give a shout out to someone in the past who was in the military.
Or if you have an opinion on the politics, the state of politics in our state, evidenced by this next gubernatorial race coming up. This political consultant, which we never have enough of those, in Lansing, quote, bringing balance to the ticket is about party principles, he said. And this is where it gets me. The party has built its reputation on bringing diversity to the mix, racially, ethnically, and gender-based. What about competence? What about thought diversity? Isn't that the real payday, is when you have thought diversity?
It's not allowed in the Democrat Party.
Hey, you quit being insensitive over there.
I'm trying to get banned.
You're going to get banned here in a minute. Now, we have, with Shower hailing from Battle Creek and the only announced candidate for Attorney General, Mark Totten, hailing from Kalamazoo, guess what? It makes sense that the Democrat candidate for Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of State need to include not competence, not skill, not long history of really successfully being a public servant, but you need to be a woman, a minority, and a resident of Southeast Michigan. So I think this is just indicative of where we're getting hosed here in our political climate. Moving on. Mark Shower's campaign would only say that he plans to pick a like-minded Democrat before the August 5th primary election. Quote, Mark plans to select a running mate who shares his values and has a clear record of fighting for good jobs, good schools, and protecting the middle class, said Shower spokesman Zach Pohl. And Zach, you left out children and you left out the environment. Now, if any of you are this is just more of the same. We're going to get more of the same. And of course, if we try to compare numbers and compare real performance, you know, some people just, the low information voter, he just or she just falls asleep. So I'm going to wake you up with this, because this is red meat. This is absolutely something that will, I think, make all of you proud to be an American. And we're going to talk about Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio. He's putting inmates on bread and water if they destroyed the U.S. flag. First, we're going to take a phone call. What's your name? Hello, line 1. Well,
Jarrett, you there?
I think we lost him. Okay. Well, maybe he'll call back. Jared, is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jared, what's going on, buddy? I know, we got him up here. Oh, we got a bad cell. We got a bad call us. I'm going to drop both lines. You call us back, Jarrett. We'll drop both lines. We'll try to get a better signal. Until we do, dozens of inmates in Arizona jails have been put on a diet of bread and water for desecrating U.S. flags that hang in their cells. Sheriff Joe, America's sheriff. Okay, here we go. Let's try this. Do we have a better cell phone signal now? No, we do not. Let's try that. Do we have a better... Garrett, is this you?
All right, hold on. Okay, hold on, Joe.
Okay, all right. Well, he's going to put him on hold. And we'll get to him. Sheriff Joe told the news agency that 38 inmates in 6 different jails were getting meals of bread and water twice daily. The punishment for destroying government property while in custody. Now, there's an opportunity to get something. These inmates have destroyed the American flag that was placed in their cells, tearing them, writing on them, stepping on them, throwing them in the toilet, trash, or wherever they feel. It's a disgrace to those who fought for our country. Sheriff Joe, you're a hero. All right, we have a caller in line 1, do we?
No one there?
I don't think so.
Try line 2, Jared.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, are you on line 2? Well, I don't know. He's, everything's set here. So, I don't know. We'll, hopefully get him back. Sheriff Joe has had it with these inmates desecrating the flag. The punishment will last 7 days. The second offense would bring 10 additional days of the bread and water diet. You know, they started to behave when he made them wear pink underwear and pink prison uniforms. I'll bet they'll get tired of bread and water. And, of course, the ACLU is calling it a publicity stunt. It's certainly not illegal, but what he is doing is bad policy. Well, not if you run jails for a living. It's just another vindictive policy that has nothing to do with running a good jail system. Perhaps we should let them watch Cupcake Wars, and they can make cupcakes. And so we're good.
Try Jeff on 2.
Yeah, okay, no, on 1. Jeff, is that you? No, we're having troubles here. Definitely have a dial tone. No, we got a dial tone there. All right, you guys, we might be having phone issues, but I still want you to keep trying to call in. Now, you recall that in questioning Gitmo detainees, we would play music. Well, Sheriff Joe does the same thing. In recent months, he's played patriotic songs over the public address systems, including the Star Spangled Banner and God Bless America. And let's see, he's a 6-term sheriff. He is a tough-as-nails lawman. We all love this guy. Of course, the feds are always suing him, and he's facing another one for civil rights abuses. But Sheriff Joe, if they wreck the flag, they should pay for it. So I'm glad for that. Do we have a caller finally on line 1? Well, are you there, Jeff?
Daddy.
Who's this? What's your name? We had him for a second.
Having phone issues.
Yeah, we must be
Jeff,
having...
thanks for trying to call back in. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I don't know what it is. Now, at the top of the show, I mentioned some of the subjects I was going to try to touch on. And there was a national politics issue. I skipped over. I'm going to go back to it real quick. And I'm going to keep trying to get callers on line 1. What's your name? No, we're having issues here. I think we got everything set right. It's just not happening. The White House, this is January 7th. Oh, that's a file photo. The White House is reinstituting a shuttered internal political office. Now that's scary, just those three words, internal political office. The White House is reinstating a political office to help congressional Democrats in the 2014 elections, and Lord knows they're going to need that help. But it's raising concerns considering President Obama shuttered a similar operation after a federal investigation found it had used taxpayer money to help Republican candidates. Some Bush staffers went off the reservation and used federal tax dollars to help Republican candidates, and you can't do that. It's against the law. Now, on Friday, President Obama announced the opening of the, I love these names, the Office of Political Strategy and Outreach. Outreach. Who's against outreach? I'm pro-outreach. But 3 years after the investigation by the Office of Special Counsel, which is an independent federal investigative and prosecutorial agency, it's according to California Republican Darrell Issa, who has oversight over this office, they're concerned about potential illegal use of taxpayer funds. Given all the off-reservation things that have been happening out of this executive branch, I think he's probably rightly concerned. Now, in a January 2011 report, the Watchdog Office found that the staff of George W. Bush, his Office of Political Affairs, violated federal statutes that prohibit the use of Treasury Department money for some political activity while working with groups to get Republican candidates elected. And that appears, quote, to be precisely what the rebranded Office of Political Strategy and Outreach will do, according to Darrell Issa. Now, a top Obama advisor says, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. They're going to have a website. It'll be really cool. And although they aren't going to hire that CGI company that built the healthcare.gov. Issa, as you know, his House committee has jurisdiction over this. He promises to appropriate scrutiny and oversight. I hope he does, because the last thing we need is a Nixonian political office wielding power, especially during an election year. That's the last thing we need. And so I hope they stay on top of it, because if not, it's just going to be headlines. Now, I had mentioned an Econ 101, and that if you wanted to make capital or money flee, this would be a good way to do it. And that is, this came from FoxNews.com. Smith & Wesson, they would make handguns and I think rifles too, oh yeah. And Sturm Ruger are announcing they are refusing to sell non-compliant weapons into California over their micro-stamping requirement. This is basically what California did is they passed a law mandating technology that doesn't fully exist. And you might wonder why. And from a constitutional law professor, David Koppel, this is an indirect way to ban new handguns from being sold. And it works in California because these new handguns will not be sold in California as a result of this legislation. It's micro-stamping. Basically, the firing pin will have a serial number on it, micro-serial number. And it'll strike the primer on the centerfire cartridge, and it will leave an imprint. And, of course, guess what they say? The proponents of this, would you want to guess their argument for advancing this? Yes, they want to save children and reduce crime. Except the problem with that, criminals often kill with stolen handguns. And tracing the bullet to a stolen handgun will do you no good at all. In fact, tracing bullets was really never the intent of the law in the first place. It's the latest attempt to undermine the Second Amendment in California by politicians with little to no knowledge of firearms who seek to impose their values upon those who choose to protect their families with a constitutional right to own a handgun. But the technology is not perfected. As a result, Smith & Wesson and Ruger are pulling out in many sales areas, are pulling out of California. Now, they'll continue to sell other weapons so long as they can do that. But the interesting thing is, There are 3 other states lined up to do this too. They see this successful strategy at banning, at chipping away and banning future sales. And that would be the states of Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts. And that is our breadbasket for firearm manufacturing. So I say, good. Let's go for it, because Michigan could gear up, contact these companies, and with our economic climate, the kind of job that between what the governor did in the House and Senate here, we stand a pretty good job, pretty good stead. We stand in good position to maybe capture some of these manufacturing jobs, ones we've lost. And it's too bad that California, Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts, but they will be losing many things, and that is just one of them. All right, we're going to go to a break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
You can't text and pay attention to the world around you, and you definitely can't text and drive. Every year, deaths due to distracted and negligent driving are increasing. In fact, while drunk driving rates have dropped greatly, negligent driving fatalities have skyrocketed. Find out more at negligentdriving.com.
Maybe there's some caller that just banned us in Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts, and California. No, we don't have a caller in line 1. We must have lost him again. All right, everyone, you're listening to what looks to be like the last segment of This Week with Tom Crandell, and I'm your host, Tom Crandell. I would invite you to try the phone lines, 441-9595. I'm sure the people who know about this will probably be looking into it tomorrow, since there's a big show that kicks off at 9 a.m. called Live with Rink. All right, Econ 101, that's how you make capital flee. Start passing laws, start attacking them. They'll leave. Now, I had mentioned that some time ago, actually, Rank had invited me to fill in for him with Tim, co-host with Tim Collins here, the station manager, program director extraordinaire. And one of the things we talked about was the farm bill. And the real issue is it's a comprehensive bill, so it's huge, and it's just filled with pork. And it's coming up. Capitol Hill negotiators are working Sunday, that would be today, on a plan to complete the contentious farm bill in the House. Now, it's renewing a 5-year, roughly $500 billion bill, and it's mostly stalled because of the Republicans wanting bigger cuts in food stamps. And a compromise has been reached, and the Republicans wanted, $40 billion. The Democrats wanted $4 billion, so there was a compromise. Now, that was not $22 billion, because I believe that would be halfway between. It was $9 billion, so it seems like the Republicans compromised more than the Democrats. But in any event, this bill does things such as artificially sustaining low prices for milk so that we all can pay what we pay. And they threatened $8 a gallon milk if the country if we reverted to a 1949 law. But some of the other things it's doing, it's regulating the size of cages in which chickens are raised. Now, I've seen that show, The Alaskan Frontier, and their cages are pretty doggone small. They're also trying to control, put a cap on direct payments to farm families. And that was the whole gist of the whole conversation. So small farms get so little of this aid. The big farms do. The corporate farms get the bulk of this aid. And I'm sorry, there isn't a corporation out there that should get any taxpayer money. I don't care who you are. You cannot make a case to me. I will not accept the logic that a privately held corporation or a publicly traded corporation needs public tax dollars to survive or make their ends meet. If they do, they should close their doors. The real trouble with this is our own Agriculture Secretary, Tom Vilsack. His family gets subsidies. There are assistant secretaries in the Agricultural Department. They get farm subsidies. Is there no conflict of interest there? They track subsidies paid into New York City zip codes. Queens, Long Island. There are no farms in Queens. Brooklyn. There are farm subsidies paid to zip codes in Malibu, California. Los Angeles, California. So, but rest assured, we'll get milk. We'll get a milk subsidy. And we won't rein any of this in. The scary thing on tonight's docket was Econ 401. This is coming from England. And this really is a bit unnerving because we seem to be on the same path they do, just a much longer trajectory. You know, we joke about Greece and all the financial problems they have, spending more money than they have and running out of funds and not being able to make their government monthly checks, and the people rioting because of it, students rioting because they aren't getting their subsidies for their tuition, and then the Greeks went to seizing cash in people's bank accounts to offset their debt. Now, this was 24th January 2014. This comes from BBC News Business. Bob Howard, Mr. Bob Howard. He's a reporter with a group called the Money Box out of BBC. And it's the HSBC Bank in England. Some customers have been prevented from withdrawing large amounts of cash because they could not provide evidence of why they wanted it. Listeners have told the Money Box that they were stopped from withdrawing amounts ranging from £5,000 to £10,000. I think £10,000 is somewhere around $8,000 right there. The bank admitted it had not informed customers of the change in policy, which was implemented in November. The bank says it has now changed its guidance to staff. They didn't change the policy. They just told the staff how to communicate it differently. A particular customer, Stephen Cotton, went to his local branch this month to withdraw £7,000 from his instant access, that's called an instant access savings account, to pay back a loan. A year before, he had withdrawn a larger sum in cash without a problem. But this time it was different. When we presented them with a withdrawal slip, they declined to give us the money because we could not provide them with a satisfactory explanation for what the money was for. They wanted a letter from the person involved. This is where it gets really thick. Mr. Cotton says the staff refused to tell him how much he could have. So I wrote out a few slips. This guy's a comedian. I wrote out a few slips, he says. Can I have £5,000? They said no. Can I have £4,000? They said no. Then I wrote a slip out for £3,000, and they said, okay, we'll give you that. Now, he asked if he could return later that day to withdraw another £3,000 because, as you recall, he had a loan to pay. But was told he could not do the same thing twice in one day. He wrote to complain, said he hadn't been informed. The bank said didn't have to tell him, as this was not a change to the terms and conditions. That's that really super fine print on the really small pieces of paper they give you. It was not a change to the terms and conditions of your bank account. We had no need to pre-notify our customers of this change. Well, it turns out the reason we are doing this is we have an obligation to protect our customers and to minimize the opportunity for financial crime. So they're protecting us from us, I guess. And, of course, it's all being done to protect us. And the bank is not backing down. A conservative MP for the Clacton, Douglas Carswell, is alarmed by the new bank policy. All these regulations which have been imposed on banks allow enormous interpretation. It basically infantilizes the customer. In a sense, your money becomes pocket money, and the bank becomes your parent. To think that can't happen here, we better not stick our heads too far in the sand. We have about a minute and a half left. We're going to try this caller again. Do we have a caller in line 1?
No, this ain't working.
It's not working? No.
Sorry, no computer.
Okay. Something's not working. But to think that can't happen here, really, it can. Things can turn on a dime. And, in fact, the prepping center, we're not going to really get to it in great detail, but there's been some studies on earthquakes. And I bring this up because, we could have, a discussion about how society could break down over political discourse and this, that, and the other thing. And the question is whether it would or whether it could or whether the Marines or the Army would take to the streets and set up checkpoints. But it's much more likely that we would face a natural disaster. We face many natural disasters all the time. Just look at Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And then man-made disasters. Look at what one little tank in West Virginia did to the drinking water of 300,000 people. Now, I met a gentleman today who writes books on prepping. He works extensively with the Veterans Administration here in town. We're going to get him on the radio. We're going to get him in the studio. He's looking for an opportunity. The cold weather is coming, so dress warm. You aren't going to be able to escape it. It's going to be here with us for a while. Good luck this week. We'll see you next Sunday.